Welcome to Hidden Voices, the podcast series which explores the less heard voices in health and social care. I'm Alicia Johnson and I work for Healthwatch Essex. It's our job to make sure that people's experiences help to improve health and social care services. In this episode, we're talking to Emily Black about underactive thyroids. So, hi Emily, it's so nice to have you today to talk about such a misunderstood condition. So should we start off with a bit of background, sort of where we met?
Yeah.
So we met at podcast training. I believe it was carried out...
It was carried out at Community Voluntary Services Tendering, where I work in Clacton.
The people that were training us were staffed by Combe Radio. And basically, while we were sort of there, like learning how to produce a podcast episode and interview each other, we both expressed that we have underactive thyroid conditions and we have many different struggles, which obviously led to me and Emily talking about this podcast episode today. Let's sort of kick it off with you, Emily. So when did you sort of figure out you had an underactive thyroid condition?
So at first I stopped eating. I was about 11 when my parents started to realise something was wrong. Doctors thought it was an eating disorder rather than an underactive thyroid. And I went through a lot of processes with the eating disorder team, thinking it was anorexia, bulimia. I had someone come to my house and we had family therapy sessions because they believed it was because of my parents' separation. But it wasn't until they threatened to take me out of school completely that my mum had actual tests done by the doctors, which is where they found the thyroid condition amongst all of those tests.
Oh wow, so yeah, because that's quite unusual, because with an underactive thyroid, there's a lot of signs of fatigue and everything, but you actually had the opposite, didn't you?
Well, I had the fatigue, but I had the opposite of weight loss, severe weight loss.
Right, okay.
Which obviously you tend to get more weight gain in underactive thyroid.
Yeah, so with my sort of background, it's sort of similar. So it sort of started in school as well. And it was like early years of sort of high school. Mine was sort of all about, like, I was continuously gaining weight. I couldn't seem to lose it. And I just kept on like getting really low moods as well. I was always looking at my friends in comparison, like they're so skinny and I'm just not. And even in classrooms, I'd have to get passes to like wear my coat in the classroom because I'd be that cold. First of all, I spoke to my mum about this and she sort of noticed the weight gain as well. So we decided to go to the doctors, and first of all they started saying that, oh, it might be your vitamin D that's low or like C, but we were like, no, that's not correct. There's all these different things that are sort of wrong. It can't just be that one simple thing. And then they came back to us saying, in other words, you need blood tests, and then they spotted that I had an underactive thyroid. I think that was a very difficult process to go through because I just didn't really understand it back then. I just sort of saw myself as being a bit complicated and just being a bit difficult. I think now, ever since getting diagnosed as like a young age, like it's definitely been like a journey to try and get treated as well. Do you find that?
Yeah, I have found it difficult because a lot of doctors don't think about it when they see me, and it was hard to get diagnosed. Like I said, they originally for about a year thought it was an eating disorder rather than a thyroid condition, and when they did find it, they said that it was terrible levels and one of the worst that they had seen. So it has been hard just as a child to get diagnosed.
Yeah, exactly. So obviously you felt really misunderstood then as a child, obviously getting diagnosed. So how are you sort of like progressing now? Are you taking like treatments, like medications?
Yeah, so I take 100 micrograms of levothyroxine and I get checked yearly to make sure that I'm still having the right dosages.
Yeah, I sort of get the exact same as well. My medication really fluctuates. Like 1 second they're telling me, oh, it's too low, next second it's telling me it's too high. But at the moment I'm on 125 micrograms of levothyroxine as well. That's a constant journey, that. But for people that don't know sort of what like a thyroid is, could you maybe explain to people what it's all about?
Yeah, so you have a thyroid gland in your neck, which is just in front of the trachea, and it produces thyroid hormones, which gets people to eat properly. With an underactive thyroid, your thyroid just doesn't produce those hormones, causing you to not eat as much, but also have a lower metabolism, sorry.
And to be honest, like, I speak to many young people, and it's actually not like very found in young people. It's more found in like the older generation, and that just really shocks me. And I found a statistic the other day that like it was something like 60% of people don't actually know that they have a thyroid condition until they start seeing all the signs and everything. So I think it's very misheard of, the thyroid condition. So does anybody in your family have a thyroid condition? Is it hereditary?
Yes, so mine is hereditary. I've got my nan on my mum's side who has, she started with an overactive thyroid that turned into an underactive. And I had a great gran on my dad's side who had an overactive as well.
I'm sort of the opposite, really. Like, I'm the only one in my family that has a thyroid condition. So it's definitely been very complicated for me. The doctors always sort of said to me that like, oh, it's probably like run through family and that sort of thing. But it never was. I never had a family member that has had an overactive or an underactive thyroid condition.
That's why I was shocked that they didn't catch it sooner in me, because we knew about the history in my family, but it wasn't something that we really thought of ourselves, and they didn't ask us, the doctors. So
exactly, you wouldn't have known really to even say it to the doctor, really.
Exactly.
But yeah, so like sort of signs and symptoms of like an underactive thyroid. Did you sort of get all the signs in the list, or because I know you didn't sort of get like the weight gain sign?
No, so I had the weight loss, which was the weird thing, which
Yeah.
is the overactive thyroid often. But I had the tiredness, I had nausea often. I was having mental health problems like depression and stuff as well. So
You know, I can completely relate. So I still have like sort of like mood changes, like weight sort of gain, like cold intolerance. I'm always cold.
I'm freezing. Like I said out there to you, my hands are so cold.
I'd even find it like, even when the weather's still warm, I'd still be cold. And like pretty much nearly all year round, I'm sleeping with like a thermal blanket, and people just become a bit odd. Along the other sides of the symptoms, I've noticed another one as well, like there's a bit of memory fog apparently, which I didn't realise was a sign, but now looking back at it, I feel like I do get foggy patches. Like, do you find that as well?
I didn't know that was a sign, but I have always grown up with a terrible memory, and I'm very well known in my family for having a terrible memory. So that's probably come from that.
Yeah. And also, like, talking along the lines of like signs and symptoms, like there's also some like theories and like sort of misconceptions. So some doctors and some people say that like gluten sensitivity like causes thyroid issues, and then there's also like chronic stress which can slow down the thyroid function as well, which I've never really sort of heard of before. But one that sort of popped up for me was recurring tonsillitis. Did you have this by any chance?
I didn't, no. My sister did, but I didn't. But she doesn't have a thyroid condition, so...
Yeah. With sort of me as a child, like the recurring tonsillitis, because the infection was in my throat, it sort of damaged the thyroid and how it was working. And because it was so repetitive, I was on antibiotics all the time, and it just kept on harming it. So I think over time, it then caused, the underactive thyroid, which is a bit of a shame really, because when I was younger, I always used to go to the doctors saying that like, I need my tonsils taken out, or I need, just constant antibiotics, but they just refused. And then here I am now with an underactive thyroid, tonsils out now, but now I'm left with this condition. So yeah, it's very hard. But honestly, there's some very weird theories out there, but that's definitely sort of one I can relate to. But is there anything you sort of relate to on that sort of list?
Not really. I haven't had any of those issues growing up. Mine, I presume, was hereditary, possibly having overactive before I had underactive that was never discovered beforehand.
Is that a thing people can experience, having both an underactive thyroid and an overactive thyroid?
Yeah, so an overreactive thyroid, it's where your thyroid works too hard. And where it works too hard, it tends to damage the thyroid where it's overworking itself, causing it to become an underactive thyroid. Or the medication for an overactive thyroid can also damage your thyroid.
That's very odd actually, because as a child, I I think I was very sort of active and very energetic as a child, but then as I got older, it then started slowing down. So maybe it was a bit of that as well. But no, I didn't know you could have sort of both at the same time, or because you've got an overactive one, it could trigger an underactive one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another solution to an overactive thyroid is actually having your thyroid taken out.
Oh, right.
Which then causes underactive because you're not getting the hormones at all.
Yeah, so how do they go around doing that then? Because if they just take your thyroid out, then it's not going to produce any hormones. So how's that even a possibility, really? Like,
well, I know about it because my nan's had hers out, because over the years it's caused her many issues. But she takes the medication for underactive thyroid now, so I presume that's the way they fix the hormones problems.
Oh, I didn't know that at all. So sort of looking at now, like, your sort of day-to-day life, really, would you say you still sort of struggle with like depression or like the mood changes, or like, as we said, like the coldness, we're always cold all the time? Do you still struggle with any of those things?
Yeah, so I do still have the cold problems. My mood swings can be quite a bit sometimes, definitely with depression every now and then, and I get tired quite easily still.
A big one for me is getting tired. Like, when I was younger, I'd go home after school and say to like my parents, like, oh, I nearly like fell asleep at school today. It's not the fact you're feeling tired, you're yawning. It's like your body's actually trying to shut itself down, like while you're sitting up straight trying to listen to the teacher. So that was very difficult for me. And then even now, like, sometimes when I go to work as well, like as soon as it hits like midday, or like maybe even like 2 p.m, like I start to notice I'm starting to get more tired. Do you sort of get that like midday?
Yeah, my afternoons, I always find it harder to concentrate on what I'm trying to do because I am just generally more tired.
I feel like that's why I'm sort of more of a morning person as well, because as soon as I'm up, I've taken my tablets, I'm off. That's why I can't like have any plans for like the afternoon or evening, because I will just fall asleep and not have the energy. So sort of an odd story I sort of have. I went to my gym one day and I noticed there was a new machine at my gym, and it could actually measure your metabolism rate, that's, that your thyroid's helping sort of like produce all the hormones. And the machine came back, because it sends like vibrations all the way through your body just to measure, your fat and how your body's, digesting food and everything like that. And it came back saying that I have got in other words, I sort of produce everything at the rate of like a 36-year-old. So like when I'm actually, exercising, or I'm trying to, lose the weight that I've gained, and obviously the tiredness, it all just sort of makes sense, because I've actually got the metabolism and, the working thyroid of a 36-year-old. And I'm 19 years old.
Wow.
Obviously I don't know how accurate you could go by it, but especially since at the time I was only 17 and it was telling me I was a 36-year-old, I found that absolutely shocking.
Yeah, it's mainly just the tiredness throughout the day and just considering it all the time when having any other medical issues, making sure nothing coincides with the medication if I've got to take anything else.
So with medication, have you ever struggled to get the medication before?
No, I've often found it quite easy. My pharmacists and doctors are often really good with me, and I'm on medical exempt cards, so I don't have to pay for it either.
Yeah, exactly. That's a bonus I have as well. But that's, unfortunately, it's like, it is a condition that just impacts your life completely. For anyone that hasn't heard of medical exemption cards before, could you please explain how they work?
So for thyroid, because it's a lifelong condition and it's something that can't be fixed any other way but medication taken every day for the rest of our lives, we get a medical exemption card so that we don't have to pay for that medication every day.
Yeah, it's very, very useful. Do you think it's a well understood condition?
I find I have to explain myself a lot to people. People who I've told tend to remember, but any new person doesn't tend to know about the condition, and I have to re-explain it to each person.
Yeah, I always found that as well. I always found I had to explain it to every teacher, every person I bumped into at work, maybe, like, that sort of thing, like managers. because I don't think it's the fact that it can be misunderstood, but it's just the fact that people are not aware of it at all. And like sometimes I've had people in my life say like, oh, you're just tired, or like that's, I mean, there's nothing sort of really wrong with you. But when I explain it all, they then sort of get it, and like your thyroid's controlling your hormones completely, and it's out of your control. It's just your body, really. Yeah. How can other people be supportive? Are there things other people can do that would help you manage your condition?
Just really understanding it is the main thing, and knowing that we may be difficult at times.
I agree. I think maybe just if people just sort of knew about it a little bit more, and like, to be honest, like no one in my family knew about it anyways. Like before my diagnosis, not even me. I've never heard of it. My teachers never even heard of it. So, and I think there just needs to be that little bit more of an understanding, rather than sort of nitpicking that, like, you're constantly falling asleep or this or that, but whether they should actually be a bit more like understanding of, you have the condition and everything. So I completely agree.
Yeah, definitely.
I wanted to know your sort of opinion on sort of weight loss medications and whether they should be accessible to people with underactive thyroid conditions. So how we have, at the moment, we have, I think, Manjaro and another type of injection. I was wondering, what's your opinion on people that are struggling with weight gain and producing those hormones to lose weight? Should that be something that's prescribed to them?
If it's necessary, I think yes. I do know someone who is on Manjaro and has a thyroid condition, so it doesn't tend to affect the medication. And as long as it's not affecting your actual medication, I think anything you need to do is okay.
I think from the point of view that, like, I struggle with my weight still, like ever since like being a child, like I think it would be very useful if they could make it, like, if they could prescribe it to people with underactive thyroid conditions, because it's not just about like your image, it's also just about your mental health. Like, I struggle obviously with my weight, because I'm heavier. I want to get around a bit more and just be a bit more active, and like with my family, my friends, but it's also just my mental health. It's feeling happy about yourself, really. And at the moment, my levothyroxine, it gives me more energy, but it's not taking away like the tiredness or the weight gain or anything. So how does the condition impact your mental health? Does it impact your sort of well-being?
Yeah, I often feel depressed as well, every now and then. Just like you say, I get more often being compared to others because of the fact that I do lose the weight rather than gain the weight. I get a lot of other people who have the condition question it and ask why they don't have the same thing. I don't have an answer to that because doctors haven't given me that answer, but I get that from them, and I can get it from other people who just don't understand or don't know, and it can be hard sometimes, especially with loss of appetite sometimes, and people question why I'm not eating much, and they just don't understand the condition enough to understand that side of it, so it can affect the mental state.
Yeah, some days I have, like, let's say I meet somebody new and they do ask me a bit of repetitive sort of questions, which can be a slightly bit damaging, like when they ask me like, oh, why are you so tired, or why are you not eating very much, because I'm obviously trying to get the weight down as well. It's just like a bit upsetting, like, really, when, like, obviously you can ask questions and be curious about my condition, but some days it's hard to answer them when they're a bit repetitive, and just
it is also harder to answer them when you're having a low day yourself and you're feeling a bit sad and depressed. It's hard to give a response to them.
Exactly. Yeah. I'd rather actually have people ask me more questions about my condition so they can actually understand it and understand where I'm coming from, so I don't have to constantly explain myself, or why I may need a blanket, like, sitting in the office at work or something like that. Do you feel the medical professionals understand the condition?
I personally don't. I don't think medical professionals tend to understand it as much. The amount of times I've gone into different doctors and told them that I have this condition, and they've had to look it up on Google to understand it. And I know more about the condition than they do. It can be hard to trust that they can treat me well.
I have the same thing as well. I've had many experiences going to the doctors, and again, they've searched up in front of me, and I've just felt completely misunderstood as soon as I've sat down and walked through the door. And I've also had experiences where they've like looked at my blood test results and they've just instantly said like, oh, well, you're in the, the average bracket, which sometimes can be a bit annoying because not everyone's sort of the same. I understand there's like there's a medically like sort of advised bracket that you should be in with, your hormone sort of levels, your level thyroxin's producing. But sometimes like when I know that something's not right, it's not. And then I'll start seeing different doctors and they'll all start saying different things. But I do think the biggest thing for me is the searching up thing.
Yeah. I mean, I've also had the issue with I'm outside the bracket by a little bit and they've changed my medication and it's just caused more issues than before.
So when you say outside the bracket, do you mean as in like you're over the dose you're...
One of my levels is too low when I was on a certain dosage, so they've taken my dosage down and it's caused more issues and they've just put it back up to what it was before and it's stabilised again. So
yeah, I've had that. I feel like looking at medical history where they've constantly changed the dosage, it literally looks like a mountain. Like it looks like a mountain range. Because I've had the exact same thing as well where I've gone in for a blood test thinking, oh my God, like my medication's too low. I'm tired, I'm moody, I'm, depressed, everything. And they've just turned around to me and said, oh, well, the medication's too high because you're not within the bracket and you're way too high on your medication. And they lower it. And then it ends up being the exact same you've sort of described. And then I go back again saying it's too low. So it's a constant battle with the doctors. Like, I haven't had any problems with medication or treatments, but it's more actually trying to get the right things sort of.
Yeah, and the right dosages of medication.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Do you feel your lived experiences and previous history is listened to?
I don't tend to share it with them sometimes unless they've asked for it. I don't know, I just haven't had a chance to really say it to any of them.
I've gone to doctor's appointments before and sort of said what's going on, but I don't feel like they're actually really sort of listening to what's really going on. Like, I think obviously most doctors sort of know the basics, but with the whole sometimes searching up what it's all about and sort of what's going on, I don't feel very understood. And even like telling them like my past history, like I've gone to this doctor, I've gone to that doctor, and they've all told me different things. Like, I mean, I'm obviously expecting the worst, and sometimes it's good. Sometimes I get like increased medication and then I actually feel better afterwards. But then some days I'm like, I walk out and I was like, there was not really much point at the appointment, was there? Yeah. If someone was just learning about thyroid conditions, what would you like them to know?
I would just say try and keep it in mind for both anyone else you meet but also yourself, because like we've discussed, doctors don't always think about it. And it took a while for me to get diagnosed because doctors didn't think about it. So if it's just something you keep in mind as a possibility that you can mention to a doctor, and then they might think about looking at you and getting you tested. Yeah,
I agree. Yeah. If anyone could sort of just like relate to what we've sort of spoken about today, like obviously go see your GP, like just talk to them. Obviously I've had up and down experiences with doctors, but either way it's still a benefit just to talk to somebody about what's going on. I think maybe just do a little bit more research as well, maybe just research into what an underactive thyroid condition is, and maybe potentially even go onto the NHS website as well and have a look on there to find out more information. Have there been any useful resources you've found when trying to learn more about your thyroid condition?
So definitely the NHS website, I've learnt a lot on there, and Thyroid UK, which I believe is a charity that is mainly around different thyroid conditions, so both underactive and overactive thyroid, it has a lot of information about.
Do they offer peer support and that sort of thing on there, or is that just more like information?
I've only looked at the information side of it. I believe there is definitely some charities that have peer support, and you can find out other people's stories and stuff on them.
Yeah. So with a thyroid condition, there's the potential impact on fertility and pregnancy. Is this something that you have concerns about for the future?
I did notice that when I was doing research as well, and I mean, it does me personally, because I am soon to get married, and it is something I am looking into is having children. So I am very concerned. My nan, who's got the thyroid condition, had a lot of miscarriages, which I now presume could have been put down to her thyroid issues. But hopefully with some doctors' help and GPs, they might be able to make sure that nothing like that happens.
Yeah, I think I've done some like small research on it previously, and there's a decent amount sort of people that, you know, like your thyroid condition does impact like pregnancy and everything like that. So it's definitely a worry for me for the future. I'm not planning to have a baby anytime soon, but it is a concern. It's definitely a concern for the future, because I would definitely like to have kids, but I don't know fully how this actually impacts you really.
From what I've read, it can cause pre-eclampsia, miscarriages, and birth defects.
Oh wow.
So something to keep an eye on when you're pregnant is your thyroid levels and the medication you're taking.
Oh wow, okay. So do you know there's any like advice to maybe like, do you keep up with the same medication when you're like pregnant then? And
from what the NHS website said, it is good to get constant checks with your GP and your doctors when you're pregnant. Constantly have blood tests to make sure you're, obviously during pregnancy, all hormones fluctuate throughout your pregnancy, and it's just good to keep an eye on the thyroid ones to make sure you're having the right dosage of medication.
Yeah. What should the average healthy thyroid levels be for anybody that doesn't know?
Your T4 levels should be between 12 and 22, and mine was 7.5, which is quite low. And TSH levels, which is your thyroid stimulating hormone, should be between 0.4 and 4, and mine was greater than 100.
Oh wow.
They wouldn't put the exact thing on there, it's just greater than 100.
Now, those numbers really do ring a bell, because when you said between 12 and 22, I was a bit like, oh yeah, now I remember. Yeah, somewhere around like 8.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you so much for opening up to us, Emily, and sharing your experience, helping us shine a light on what it's like to live with this condition. And thank you to everybody listening. On a final note as well, to any listeners who think they have similar symptoms, go see your GP, maybe go do some more research on the NHS website and Thyroid UK, or you could even talk to our Healthwatch Essex Information and Guidance Service. They're always here to help as well. And we always end by asking our guests, what would the title of your life story be?
Wow, that's a question.
Yeah.
I don't know. To be fair, would definitely be around difficulties of being diagnosed with thyroid conditions.
Yeah. I think just simple, just the misunderstood life of an underactive thyroid condition, or like, you know, maybe misunderstood and misheard, like that sort of thing. Yeah. But yeah, thank you for sharing your experiences with us, Emily, and thank you to everyone that's listening.